Hey everyone, welcome back to Coding with Nathan. Hey everyone, welcome back to Coding with Nathan. Today we're leveling up our AI game series. We're building a full AI Dungeon Master RPG with procedural dungeon generation. The dungeon is created as you explore it. Every time you move, a new room is generated with exits, possible enemies, and loot. And a local llama model acts as your live dungeon master. All right, let's take a look at what we're building. Adventure. Just created. Click new game. Click new game. We have to type in our name. And be warrior. All right. Enter ancient dungeon as a level 1 warrior named Nathan. Large blood-stained entrance hall with old bones scattered on the floor. Go north or east. Air is cold and heavy. The smell of damp stone. What do we do? Look around the room. All right. Take in your surroundings. You notice the walls are adorned with faded tapestries, torn and frayed from age. The center of the room, a large stone pedestal bears no sign of what it once held. The floor is littered with old bones. Some appear to be human, while others appear to belong to creatures you don't recognize. A faint whisper seems to carry on the wind, but it's just out of earshot. Your eyes scan the room for clues of hidden danger. You notice a few cobweb-covered torches hanging from the walls and metal frames creaking in the silence. What do you do? Let's examine pedestal. Pedestal. As you approach the pedestal, you see that it's made of dark polished stone and its surface is etched with intricate runes. They appear to be some sort of ancient language, but you can't quite decipher their meaning. The pedestal itself seems sturdy, but there's an eerie feeling emanating from it. You notice that the bones on the floor seem to be arranged in a rough circle around the pedestal. It's as if something was standing here and then disappeared. You sense a faint aura of magic lingering about the pedestal, but it's unclear what it might do. What do you want to do? Let's put bones on pedestal. Gently lift one of the nearby bones placed on a pedestal. The moment the bone touches the stone surface, the runes etched on the pedestal begin to glow. A faint blue light, the air in the room seems to thicken, as if something is being summoned or awakened. The other bones on the floor start to shift and arrange themselves, moving of their own accord toward the pedestal. They form a small, gruesome pyramid around the bone you place there. You feel a shiver run down your spine as the atmosphere in the room becomes increasingly charged with anticipation. What do you do? Wow. Don't know. Wait. You wait, and in the silence that follows the press of the glowing runes on the pedestal seem to be pulsing with otherworldly energy, and the bones around it appear to be watching. You can feel the presence building in the room, as if whatever was summoned by your actions is now stirring. Air goes colder, and you see your breath misting in front of you. The whisper you hear earlier has grown louder, but it's still just out of earshot. Suddenly, the runes on the pedestal flare with brilliant light, and there is a Goblin Scout. Attack. Goblin Scout. Alright. Charge forward, start a weapon is ready. The Goblin Scout is small and wiry, but his eyes gleam with fierce determination. Oh, great. Let's attack. See if we die right here in the first room. Strike the Goblin Scout with a swift swing of your starter weapon. The blade bites deep into its shoulder, but its Goblin's small size is allowed to dodge most. So it stumbles back, clutching its wound, but its anger, and they seem to fuel its determination. Take advantage of the momentary distraction, strike again, aim for a critical hit. Blade bites deep into the Goblin's chest, striking true and dealing significant damage. The Goblin Scout falls to the ground, defeated. Alright. Alright, and we continue to the, let's go north. Let's stay encrypt with pools of stagnant water. Let's examine the room. Take a closer look around the crypt for any clues. Searching any clues. Bloodstained pools of water seem to be coming from a series of ancient stone caskets, which are scattered about the room. As you examine them more closely, you notice one of the caskets has been recently disturbed. There's heavy scent of decay and rot. You can hear the faint sound of dripping water echoing on the walls. You see the north wall of the crypt appears to be slightly worn, as if something is scratched at it from the other side. What do you do next? Examine the recently disturbed casket. As you examine the recently disturbed casket more closely, you notice that the stone lid is slightly ajar. You push it open, and a musty smell wafts out. Inside, you see a pile of yellow cloth that appears to be a human skull. But it's not just any human skull. It bears a strange symbol etched in its forehead. The symbol seems to pulse with faint energy, faint malevolent energy, and you sense that the crypt may hold more secrets than you initially thought. What do you do next? All right, that's how this is going to go. You got some combat, you got a lot of exploring, a lot of things you can do, and the AI is controlling everything. All right, so how did we get to here? And what can you do to improve it after we give you the baseline? So let's go examine the code. All right, let's go through the code. What we have done is put our code in AI_dungeonmaster.py file. We do our imports. The most important is the TK interface, which we use for all the GUI. We have the Ollama, so we can call the Ollama AI, JSON for the files, OS for the files, random for any for the combat and things like that, and date time for anything we need to use a date time for. Set up a bunch of colors so that we don't have to type in all these weird hex codes, and we set up the save file default. All right, we then declare our class, which is AI Dungeon Master. Then, of course, we go to the first function, which is the init. Okay, so this init initializes the entire game when the program starts, creates the main window, sets up the player starting status, initializes empty inventory and story history, sets up the combat flags, creates the empty dungeon dictionary and room counter, and calls create widgets, which builds the GUI interface. And then it shows the welcome message, which is where we begin. All right. Next, we have this generate room. This creates a brand new procedural room, increases the room counter, randomly chooses the room type, corridor, chamber, cave, etc. Picks a random adjective and features that make it interesting. Randomly selects whether there's 1 to 3 exits, has a chance to place an enemy or loot, stores the complete room data in self.dungeon, and returns the new room's ID. See that being done here. We then do get current room. This is just a simple helper function. It returns the data of the room the player is currently in, or none if they're not in a room. We then have move direction. This handles when the player tries to move between rooms, checks if it's a valid exit. If valid, it generates the new room in that direction and moves the player into the new room. Marks the new room as visited and returns success plus the new room data. This is how the dungeon grows as the player explores. All right. We then have our create widgets. This is where we build the graphical user interface. It's going to create the title. It's going to create a large story display on the left side, creates an input box and an act button. It creates the right panel with the character stats, the inventory list, current room info, and the buttons for new game, save, game, load, and use a potion, and creates a status bar at the bottom. This makes our game look like what it looks like. All right, and remember that all this code is available on our GitHub, which is linked in the description and pinned in a comment. So next we have the update stats display. This refreshes the right side information panel. It updates the character stats, the hit points, level, gold, etc. It clears and refills the inventory list box. It updates the current room description and exits, and it's called whenever something changes. All right, we then have append story. This adds the text to the main story window. It temporarily enables the text widget. It inserts the new text with a color tag, whether it's from the player, the narrator, or combat. Scrolls to the bottom and it displays the widget again so that the player can't edit it. All right, we have show welcome. This displays the welcome instruction and messages when the game first opens. As you can see here, we have it being displayed. We then have new game. This starts a completely new adventure. It asks for the player's name and class. Sets stats based on the chosen class, whether it's warrior, rogue, or mage. It resets the inventory, story, history, and combat state, clears the old dungeon, generates a safe starting room, it displays the opening story, and it updates the UI. All right, all necessary to start a new game. All right, we then have send action. This is the main game loop. It processes whatever the player types. So what it does is gets what the player types, it displays it in the story window. If you're currently in combat, it sends the action to the combat handler. If the player is trying to move, it calls the movement system. If the player is trying to take loot, it handles it directly. Otherwise, it sends the action to the AI Dungeon Master. This is basically the central brain of the game. All right, see here where we're looking to determine what happened. We then get to talking to the AI, which is Ask the Dungeon Master. And the purpose is to talk to the Llama model. This builds a detailed system prompt containing the player stats, current room information, and the inventory, adds recent conversation history for memory, and sends everything to Ollama. You then receive the AI response, checks if the AI wants to start combat, and displays the response. All right. Then we go to start combat. This is what we call when we want to begin a fight. It sets in combat equal to true, creates the enemy with hit points and the attack scale to the player's level, and displays the combat start message. You then have handle combat, which this processes your player's actions during combat. This limits them to attacking, defending, using a potion, or fleeing. It calculates the damage with some randomness. It checks for enemy death or player death, and it updates the story and stats each turn. Okay, we then have to do, well, what if you won the combat? So we have win combat. This is called when the player defeats the enemy. It gives you experience and gold. It checks if you leveled up, marks the enemy as defeated in the current room, and it ends the combat mode and updates the UI. We then have, oops, the player died. This handles player death, shows the game over, and disables further actions until you start a new game. Using a potion, this lets the player heal outside of combat using a potion. This is when they press the button. Saving the game, this saves the current game state to a JSON file. It saves the player stats, inventory, the entire dungeon, the current room, and the recent story history. Loading game does the opposite. It loads a previously saved game, it reads the JSON file, restores all the game data, rebuilds the story window with recent history, and updates the UI. We then have run, which is just starts the TK interface main loop so the window stays open and responds to clicks and typing. And we have this little piece at the bottom which says this is our main file and we want to instantiate our AI Dungeon Master class and call run. And that's it. All right, so now you have the code for our AI Dungeon Master, and there are lots of improvements that, of course, you can add to it. You can add a mini map. You could create special boss rooms. You can add more enemy types with different abilities. You can let the AI generate unique room descriptions instead of using templates. You can add a shop in the starting village so you can spend your gold. All right, you now have a real AI-powered dungeon crawler that creates a new experience every time you play. If you'd enjoyed this one, hit like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what features you want to add next. Remember, code is available on our GitHub, which is linked in the description and pinned in the comments. So happy coding, and I'll see you in the next one.